And today, we're reacting to epic child soldiers who fought in World War II. At times, bruh, I believe I was supposed to be on the field, on the front line. I say this all the time, man. You know, but the internet took me away. It is what it is. Let's get to it. Let up.
Child soldiers who fought in 3 of the bloodiest battles of World War II. Number 1, Calvin Graham. What were you doing when you were in the 6th grade?
Shit, what was I doing, man? I remember I had this teacher, Miss Austin, one of the only white women I've ever found. Well, one of the white women that, you know what I'm saying, I thought I would be a milkman for. She nigga might have been, shit, what, how old are you, 12? She was 20-something, but shit, you know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, she was hitting up. So I was in English class and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? 6th grade, I also remember I had this girlfriend. I saw her hug another nigga outside. She didn't know I saw that shit. Let's get back to it, though.
I'm gonna guess probably not fighting for your life in one of the most pivotal battles of World War II. But that's exactly what Calvin Graham was doing when, at the age of 12, he found himself manning an anti-aircraft turret in the Battle of Guadalcanal. But how did this 12-year-old kid from Texas make it all the way to the Pacific Theater? Well, in 1942, life is pretty horrible for young Calvin Graham. His dad had passed away, and his mom remarried this asshole who constantly abuses him.
Dang, stomping on him?
Because of this, he spends most of his time working, selling newspapers, and sleeping at the homes of friends and family to get away from his parents. Because he's out there...
Y'all ever slept, no pallet just blanket on top of you straight on hardwood? My boy Calvin did.
Because he's out there selling newspapers daily, he sees just how badly things are going for the Allies against the Japanese. Pearl Harbor, followed by the Philippines, Saigon, and Hong Kong, it's one loss after another, and the Japanese Navy seems all but unstoppable. Seeing this, Calvin, like many other young Americans, is filled with the insatiable urge to join the war effort and fight for his country. Just one small problem though, he's only 12 years old. In fact, he's not just 12 years old, he looks like a 12-year-old standing only 5 feet 2 inches tall and weighing around 125 pounds. But he's gonna try to get into the war anyway. He forges his mom's signature and steals a notary stamp and tries to enlist into the US Navy. Surprisingly, the recruiters seem to be willing to turn a blind eye to the fact this was obviously a kid, and he makes it all the way to the physical exam.
17. He said that he was 17, but he's 12. 5'2". They're like, fuck it, boy. Like the heart. If he gets blown up, not our goddamn fault. What type of shit is this?
When it's his turn, the dentist has Calvin open his mouth and discovers that he still has some of his baby teeth. Wow. Calvin argues that he's actually 17 and that the dentist doesn't know what he's talking about. The dentist threatens to turn Calvin in if he doesn't leave, but Calvin pulls an Uno reverse and
you can go to jail about that shit?
Says he knows for a fact that the men the dentist had approved before him were also underage because he knows them from school, and he threatens to turn the dentist in for sending kids to war.
Alright, fine. Take your ass.
Alright, f*** it, you win. Yeah. And with that, Calvin is shipped off to basic training. He tells his mom he's going off to visit his grandma, and his mom is like, okay, whatever. Wow. And he goes off to basic. He's there for 6 weeks and is trained as a loader for anti-aircraft guns and is quickly shipped out on the USS South Dakota. The South Dakota makes a beeline into the heart of the Pacific Theater, and it didn't take long for Calvin to find himself in active combat. First, on October 26, 1942, the South Dakota finds itself fighting for her life in the Battle of Santa Cruz. Japanese bombers are relentlessly targeting the USS Enterprise and the ships defending her. The Japanese send wave after wave of bombers at the South Dakota, and she's getting rocked. In one of the bombing runs, the captain of the ship is thrown into a wall and knocked unconscious.
Shit.
All the while, Calvin is out there, bravely helping to man one of the 40mm anti-aircraft guns. As the sun sets, the South Dakota is badly damaged, and 2 of the sailors had died in the fight.
Only 2? All them bombs dropping? Not bad.
But this...
Hey, before we dive back into the video, I know y'all normally skip these ads, cause I ain't gonna lie, I do too. But don't skip me just yet, because the guys over at Free Cash are supporting this video. Free Cash is the program where you can literally earn money by trying out free apps and games. It is 100% free to sign up. All you need is an email and a password. You'll see a list of games with tasks like reach level 5 or complete a few missions. And once you do that, they credit your account. Credits from the real cash where you cash out through PayPal or gift card. You do not have to worry about them selling your data. They track your progress so that way they know when to pay you. And the reason reason this works is very simple. Games and apps want more people on their platform. They pay free cash to get people onto their app, and free cash shares the money with you. It's very simple. I've had a lot of supporters come to me saying they're making an extra $5 to $10 a day. Not life-changing, but it adds up. Very rarely I've seen very big payouts. I've had somebody come to me said they made $500 before. No data to lose, no money to lose. It's free, fast, and it's paying people every single day. Hit the link in my description or scan the QR code on the screen. Try a couple games and DM me when you cash out.
This battle was nothing compared to what was coming next. After some quick repairs, Calvin and the South Dakota joined the combined Task Force 61 and are assigned to assist U.S. forces in the Solomon Islands. In August, the Americans had taken Henderson Field, a Japanese-constructed airstrip on Guadalcanal. This unsurprisingly pissed off the Japanese, as it was crucial for their plans in the Pacific, so the Marines stationed at Henderson found themselves under constant attack from land, sea, and air. By November, it's become clear to both sides that whoever controls Henderson Field will likely control the Pacific. On the night of November 13th, the naval battle at Guadalcanal begins, and the Americans take heavy casualties, losing 6 ships and 4 more being heavily damaged. Though losses were steep, they had prevented the bombing raid on Henderson Field, and the following night, Calvin, along with the crew of the South Dakota, joined the battle. Fighting breaks out near midnight, and the Americans are again taking heavy losses. 3 of the escorting
Calvin ain't get launched into the sea yet.
Destroyers are sunk by Japanese torpedoes, and the last is badly damaged. The South Dakota and another battleship, the USS Washington, are all that's left of the American naval offensive that night. The South Dakota prepares to attack, but suddenly the ship is hit with an electrical failure that takes all of its weapons offline. Calvin, along with the rest of the crew, are sitting ducks. The Japanese searchlights soon find the ship in the darkness, and the blinding lights are quickly followed by a barrage of cannon fire.
Damn.
The South Dakota is hit 26 times in a span of just 4 minutes. Calvin is hit with shrapnel from the bombardment that knocks
now this looks about right.
out his teeth and badly damages his face. He looks around and sees other men have suffered far worse injuries and scrambles to his feet to rush to help whoever he can to safety. He quickly sees that many of his fellow sailors had not survived the blast, and he begins to take the belts off the dead and use them as tourniquets on those who were injured.
Calvin.
Remember, he's just 12 years old. He spends the rest of the night tending to the wounded. That night aged me, said Calvin years later.
Oh, he made it.
I mean, how could it not have? Following this battle, the badly damaged South Dakota somehow survives and sails back to New York for repairs. Calvin is awarded the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart for his heroics in the battle, and besides his job, he's feeling great. He's a war veteran who proudly served his country and returned alive. He's ready to ship out again.
All at the age of 13.
But history is sometimes cruel to its heroes. See, his Karen of a mom somehow finds out that Calvin was in fact not at his grandma's house this whole time. Took her.
What the fuck? She don't give a fuck. You don't care anyway. You just nigga out here handling business, man. Taking care of this country. You over here getting clapped around by an abusive man. And your son said that, and you were just like, all right, get the fuck out of here.
For a while, and calls the U.S. Navy to complain that they sent her 12-year-old son off to war. When the Navy confirms this, they throw him in the brig for 3 months.
Dang! So they let brother sit prison for 3 months?
When he was released,
After winning a Purple Heart and a Bronze Award, whatever the hell.
Calvin was excited to get back to fighting, but instead, the Navy discharges him on April 1st, 1943, and they strip him of all his medals. This all seemed like a sick April Fool's joke, but it was true. Because of his dishonorable discharge, Calvin was not eligible for any veterans benefits or health care, despite the fact he was injured in war. He then went on to speed run life, getting married at 14.
Oh! Calvin
Had a kid at 15 and was divorced by 17. After a short stint in the Marines during the Korean War, Calvin would spend the rest of his life trying to regain his medical benefits and his military honors.
Damn,
3 decades later, in 1978, Calvin was finally given his honorable
3 decades?
discharge by President Jimmy Carter, and all his medals except for his Purple Heart were reinstated. In 1988, 40 years after the war, President Reagan reinstated his medical benefits. Finally, in 1994, President Clinton reinstated his Purple Heart Award, 2 years after Calvin had already passed away.
Damn, Calvin! Jesus! Shit. That's also the painful part about going and putting all your all into some shit like that, boy. them niggas will hold your ass. You know how many people are out on the street right now? I fought for the war. And it's just a head on a body in a chair. And they're like, please help. Bruh. And they lost all their limbs in war. Bruh. That's just bogus to me. People like that, nigga, they should, I know it's not all perfect. I know maybe they could have got addicted to something, but they should be able to get that money, bro. They should be able to get that money, bro. Every time. I ain't gonna lie.
Number 2, Jack Lucas. It's January
That money in that help.
42, and lying in bed at Edwards Military Institute in North Carolina, a boy named Jack Lucas can't sleep. Since the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, he's never been the same, and the only thing he can think about is getting into the war and fighting the Japanese.
I've never been that passionate, boy, about like I've been lived through some shit. You know what I'm saying? Nigga lived through COVID. I lived through George Bush being president and Obama. You know what I'm saying? We was out there in Iraq. I wasn't like, man, I gotta get out there. Must have been different though back here, but probably felt a lot more personal, and it probably affected lives a lot more back then. You know what I'm saying?
Wants revenge, but there's just one issue. Jack is just 14 years old. Now, at the time, America needed troops, and all branches were allowing 17-year-olds to enlist with a parent's signature. Jack knew this, and he thought his chances were pretty good at fooling the recruiter. See, he was a big, tough kid, standing 5'8" and weighing 180 pounds. So when he graduates from the 8th grade, he tells his mom he wants to enlist with the Marines and demands her signature. She refuses, saying he can go when he's 17, hoping the war would be over by then. Jack doesn't take no for an answer and forges her signature and demands his stepdad to drive him to the recruiter's office.
Shit.
Now, Jack and his stepdad, they don't really get along. He's an alcoholic, and to Jack, it seems he's only in this relationship to mooch off his mom. And because this was probably true, the stepdad doesn't like Jack either. They drive in silence, and when they reach the recruiter's office, they're both relieved that they may never have to see each other again. So Jack goes in, hands in his forged documents, and the recruiter starts asking for more things, like his birth certificate, which he doesn't have. He keeps telling the guy he's 17, but the recruiter is skeptical and ultimately turns him away. Jack is defeated and walks back to the car.
Damn, guy. Drinking and driving, ain't it? Ain't even gonna let it confirm and get back home to say you started drinking, huh?
He tells his stepdad what happened.
That's one thing, like, I could never be an alcoholic, bro, because one, I don't have an addictive personality at all. But two, like, the way alcohol make you feel the next day, I know it's probably one of those things where people just be pushing through, but bro, I am too, like, high functioning, too busy, like, trying to be at work and stuff like that. I couldn't do this, bro. I can't be disoriented like that. I can't wake up with headaches and hungover and trying to rest, and my body just feels like it's just shaking all night. I couldn't.
Inside, and thinking he might lose his chance to get rid of this kid for good, he walks with Jack back into the recruiter's office
17.
and starts lying for him, saying that he really is 17 and they just lost his birth certificate and stuff. This somehow works, and Jack
back then, I'd imagine you could kind of just do shit like that.
Is officially enlisted into the Marine Corps at the age of 14. Now, at boot camp, Jack shines. Remember, he was in military academy up to this point, so he knows the drills. He knows how to shoot. He's basically ahead of all these new recruits, even though he's only 14 years old. He gets through boot camp and is shipped off to a few other bases to continue his training. He ends up in North Carolina to specialize in operating machine guns, and while there, he again is top of his class. So much so that his instructors reward him by making him a permanent instructor. He'll never have to see active combat.
He didn't like that. That exactly. Fuck no. That is bogus. I'm cold as hell, but y'all don't use me. Y'all just use me to teach other niggas, which makes some sense. You know what I'm saying? But nah, I'm out here to let that motherfucking iron slang. You know what I'm saying?
Pisses Jack off because this is
Jack off.
The opposite of what he wants. So he doesn't tell anyone of his orders, and instead, when the trains come to get the rest of the Marines at the base who'll be shipping out to war,
this is disobedient, hard-headed little nigga. Hard-headed make a soft ass now.
Jack just lines up and boards the train with them. The train makes it all the way to California, and when the commanding officer there finds out he's not on the roll call list, they ask him why, to which he replies, "I don't know. They just told me to get on the train." Surprisingly, this works. And after a few short months in California, his whole unit gets shipped to Pearl Harbor in Hawaii.
There we go.
He's getting so close to battle he can feel it and starts writing letters to people back on the continent telling them that even though he had to wait a year, he's finally going to get to fight the Japanese at 15. And sure enough, the day comes and his unit receives orders to ship out. Well, everyone except Jack. He doesn't get what's going on until he gets called into the colonel's office. The colonel sits him down and tells him, "You do know that we screen every letter that gets sent off this base, right?"
You fucking idiot, Jack. You little stupid, dumb, little badass. That's what I was thinking. I was like, bro, you just need to, you don't need to be doing all this talking, bro. What are you doing?
The Marine Corps now officially knows he's just 15 years old, and they can't send him into active combat. But Jack tells them, "If you send me home, I'll just go to the army and lie about my age again." So the colonel, wanting to keep this kid with a death wish alive, keeps him at Pearl Harbor and makes him a truck driver on base. He was
bogus. That is so bogus. Just so you can get out here, you start harming others. You picking fights and shit.
all that big ocean.
Jack, boy, y'all want to die so bad, ain't it? Goodness gracious.
At this point, he's considered AWOL, and he realizes that if he goes 30 days without reporting, he'll be classified as a deserter during war, which has severe punishments. So on day 29, as his ship is nearing its destination, he turns himself in, knowing they're not going to turn the ship around. He was right, and he's assigned to the 1st Battalion, 26th Marines, and he finds out he's heading for a place called Iwo Jima. Sounds tropical. He turned 17 on the ship 5 days before the battle.
Okay.
The Marines arrive off the coast of Iwo Jima, and
He been put in work, man. I ain't gonna lie. And he stayed consistent. From 14 to 17, bro. He stayed consistent. I gotta give him that.
it's a barren wasteland. Knowing the Americans were coming and that this was one of the last defenses to their main islands, the Japanese had spent months fortifying the island with
That's what you
artillery,
wanted, bro.
pillboxes, and an extensive tunnel network. Their war effort was looking grim, but the 21,000 defenders on the island have all promised each other to kill 10 Americans before letting themselves be killed. They will win or die trying on this island. The Navy had been bombing the island for 3 days and were confident they had wiped out most of the Japanese resistance. This ground invasion should be a cakewalk and only take a few days to wipe out what's left of the Japanese there. At 8:59 on February 19th, Jack and his fellow Marines begin to land on the island. The sand beneath their feet is pitch black and reeks of sulfur. It's almost as if the island itself is fighting against the Marines as it sucks their feet 6 inches below the surface with each step they take. Suddenly, shells are heard whistling through the air and begin
time to get
exploding
busy.
all around the Americans. Once hidden artillery is wheeled out on the hills, and the Japanese, who were patiently waiting for the right moment, begin laying down heavy gunfire on the stranded Marines. The Navy bombardment had done almost no damage, and the Japanese have nearly their full fighting force ready to defend the island to the death. Jack ducks for cover, and all around him soldiers are dying
Get
and
busy,
equipment is
Jack.
exploding. The Japanese unleash hell on the Americans, and as more Marines make it to the beach, it's a massacre. The water on the shore is quickly stained red, and in the first 18 hours, 2,300 Americans are killed in action.
Ooh,
Jack is
they
pinned
said
down in a
just-
hole
They
overnight.
talking about just 10.
The next morning, the fighting rages on, but Jack and 3 other Marines have made their way up the beach in a trench when
Okay.
suddenly they find themselves face to face with 11 Japanese soldiers. Both sides
just
immediately
showed.
begin firing at each other, and Jack takes out 2 Japanese soldiers.
Okay, Jack.
He aims and fires again, but his gun jams. He looks down to fix his rifle and sees 2 grenades lying on the ground in the middle of his unit.
It's
How
time.
long have they been sitting there? If they go off, he and the other Marines near him will surely be tortured to death by the enemy. With no hesitation, Jack yells, "Grenade!" and dives onto one of them and shoves it as deep as he can into the sand below him. He reaches
Back it
out
up.
for the other grenade and pulls it under his body. The Marines around him scramble
Jack!
away as Jack makes peace with the fact he will die on this island.
Jack!
The grenade he had shoved into the sand explodes first, sending Jack flying into the sky.
Oh!
He lands in a crumpled mess, bleeding profusely from holes up and down his body. His eye is hanging out of its socket. His
Jack! Jack. Bruh, God gave him so many chances. Like, hey, no. Sometimes being persistent gets you to your goal, man. But sometimes, bruh, it's God telling you this is not the path you're supposed to take. Goodness gracious.
right arm is completely broken, His left hand is still holding the other grenade. It was a dud and never went off. His lung is punctured and he can't talk or move. All he can do is spit out the blood that's pooling in his mouth.
I know at this, bro, ain't no way. I know at this point he was regretting this shit. Ain't no way. Jesus! Jack, I know for a fact. Ooh, hold on. Jack, I know for a fact your ass was regretting that. Oh, Jack, I know for a fact your ass was regretting that. Hold on. Jesus! Hold on.
The Marines he was with assumed he was dead and had pushed on, leaving him all alone.
Sorry, Jack, fuck you.
He's lying there in intense pain,
They
begging
didn't even give this nigga a mercy shot or nothing.
God to save him, when a medic who is approaching with the next wave sees him spitting out blood and moving his fingers. He quickly jumps in and begins treating Jack's wounds.
Hold on, the story need to be about this nigga, not Jack, big disobedient ass.
But as he's treating Jack, another Japanese soldier pops up and begins firing on them. The medic turns and takes out the Japanese soldier and calls for a stretcher to take Jack off the battlefield. They rush Jack off to the beach near the shore where he lies there, bleeding for hours until he's transferred to a medical ship. He has 22 emergency surgeries, which save his life, though he was left with 200 pieces of shrapnel in his body. On October 5th, 1945, Jacqueline H. Lucas was awarded the Medal of Honor from President Truman for his bravery in the Battle of Iwo Jima. Number 3, Sergey Aleshklov.
I guess. Don't sound like it was worth it to me, goddamn.
In the summer of 1942, the war is raging on the Eastern Front. After being stalled in the winter of 1941, the Germans have resumed their offensive into the Soviet Union. Though unremarkable in most respects, a small village called Grin in the Kaluga region has become a staging area for partisan soldiers, ordinary citizens who had volunteered to take up arms and fight against the Germans. In this village, a 6-year-old boy named Sergey Aleshklov is living with his mother and older brother. Their father had passed away before the war had begun, and their mother has been trying her best to care for and protect her 2 young sons. But everything changes for the Aleshklov family when, without warning, German soldiers descend on Grin and begin systematically executing everyone living there. Sergey watches in horror as the Germans hang his older brother and then shoot his mother with the machine gun as she desperately tries to save him. A neighbor pushes Sergey out of the village and tells him to run away. Not knowing what to do, he takes off into the woods away from the screaming and gunshots behind him. Sergey wanders all alone.
I don't know if it's worth living after all of that, man.
Through the woods for days, crying for his mother. He's cold and starving and covered from head to toe in bug bites. Just as he's about to give up, he's discovered by a reconnaissance unit from the 142nd Guards Rifle Regiment. They're shocked to see such a small boy wandering all alone and wrap him in a horse blanket and bring him back to their base. The soldiers give him food and water and begin asking him questions. What's your name? How long were you wandering alone in the woods? When the soldiers ask him about his mother, Sergey breaks down and begins crying uncontrollably. The questions end there. As he recovers, Sergey's mood improves and he finds a family amongst the men of the 142nd. All the men fall in love with this little boy, and they start to see and treat him as their mascot. The unit's commander, Major Mikhail Vorobyov, who had no family of his own, formally adopted Sergey to prevent him from being sent to an orphanage, as he knew because of the war, many children in orphanages were now starving. For now, Sergey would stay with them as a member of the 142nd, and they had a tiny uniform made for him. Sergey quickly found his place. He would deliver letters and newspapers to the men and help keep their spirits up. He also began helping in reconnaissance missions and once helped to spot German artillery spotters hiding in a nearby haystack. In November of 1942, the 142nd were given orders to assist in the Battle of Stalingrad. The men ship out, and when they arrive, the fighting is intense. In
my young nigga out there too.
One instance, Sergey finds himself running for his life as a Luftwaffe pilot making his way back from an air raid mistakes him for an officer due to shoulder straps on his tiny uniform and opens fire on the 6-year-old. But Sergey proves his true value when he and his adoptive father are caught in a shelling raid. Vorobyov pushes Sergey to safety and is trapped under a pile of debris and rubble. Sergey rushes in and desperately tries to dig him out, but can't. He runs to find help, and soldiers are able to dig Vorobyov out alive. For this, he receives the 4 Combat Merit Award the following year. After victory at Stalingrad, Sergey continues to travel with the 142nd and almost dies 2 more times. First, when an artillery shell knocked him off of a raft into the Donets River. And another time, when a Jeep he was in with his adoptive father ran over a landmine, throwing the vehicle into the air, killing the driver instantly.
Oh, shit.
But through it all, Sergey remained with his
Still gonna hit his dance, though.
unit.
Hey.
They were the only family he knew, and he would continue to serve with them until 1944, when upon meeting 2nd Army Commander Vasily Chukov, Sergey was ordered to leave the war and enroll in Suvorov Military School. As a gift, Chukov gave Sergey his own Browning pistol as a sign of respect.
This nigga's what, 7 years old at this point? 8? Here you go, young nigga. You with us now.
Respect and recognition for his bravery in the war. 8 seems a little young to be getting your own handgun, but I guess times were different back then. Here are 3.
Wow. Guess he had the best ending. But boy, that being said, let me know what y'all think, man. Like the video, sub up, comment up, visual channel, layout. I appreciate the grip. We are gone. And do you like to it?